Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Barishan here from Datanpie. In today's video, let's go and talk about the different transformation techniques that we have inside Power BI. We'll touch base on some of the transformation techniques. Let's see how that is to be done. Let's get into the video. Okay, let's go back to our Excel file and we'll get into the sheet called as fill, alright? And this fill sheet, just have a look at this data. The fill sheet has two columns. We have state and city, and these are all the states from United States, and these are all the cities for that particular state. We have it in this fashion, alright? Now one of the things that you'll notice is that we have some sort of merged cells here. Can you see that? Alabama, the cells are all merged. We have Arizona, the cells are all merged. Now the merged cells is good thing that happens with Excel sheets, and when you have these data this way in a merged fashion, it becomes easier for a human being to go and read this information, right? So whenever you have a merged cell, it becomes easier and simple to understand your data. And that's the reason most of them, go and have merged cells inside Excel. So this may not be case for Power BI or any other tool. We cannot have merged cells inside Power BI. Now let me take this information into Power BI and we'll understand how this is all coming up. Okay, so let's go load our fill sheet into Power BI and we'll see how this is all set up inside Power BI. So let me just go to the Power BI file. I'll go and connect to our Excel workbook. We have transformation technique file here. Let's go and open that, and we'll just go load the fill sheet. All right. So when I click on fill, just look at this data, look at the preview and tell me what are all the different details that you want to fix here. How is the data coming up, and what are all the different discrepancies that you have? What do you want to fix here in this particular detail? So we want to have the cells were merged in the data source. It is not merged here. So what we want is, we want to take our Alabama value and then fill it wherever there is null here, and we'll go talk about it later. But we want also the Arizona value to be filled like this, California being taken and filled this way, and that is what we want to go and do, and hence the sheet name called as fill. We'll just work on this particular small option that we have here in Power BI. Now you'll also see that the column names are not proper, so we want our first row to be taken as header, and that's a simple fix. We did that already for our other tables. We'll go ahead and do this as well for this table. All right, so you see that there is a discrepancy with your data, hence we cannot go ahead and load the data. So we'll go ahead and transform the data and then load the data into Power BI. You're getting my point? So this is when you go and transform your data, and we have already seen these options whenever we go with this particular detail, right? So let me check that box. I want to get my fill sheet loaded into Power BI, but before we can load it, we want to transform this data and then load our data. All right, so I'll click on transform data and that opens the Power Query editor for you. All right, let's just do this way. First of all, let's go and fix the column headers. It's a simple fix. So either you click on this intersection here, there is a small icon, just click on that and it will give you a bunch of options. You can use the second option from here, and that is going to help you to use the first row as the header and promote that header, right? Otherwise, you can also use this icon here and just click on that once. It will take your first row to the headers, right? So just use one of them. I'll just go with this one here on top. I'll just click on it and that fixes our column name. Very good. Okay, now let's go and discuss on how to fix this issue. Now I'm just going to give you some explanation here. We'll understand the complexity of the problem that we have in hand, and then we will go ahead and try fixing this using some techniques that we have inside Power BI. Okay, now what has happened here is, these are all the cities of Alabama. Yes, these are all the cities of Arizona. Now we had these cells merged inside Excel, and it cannot be the case here inside Power BI, because you may want to identify each city and which state that it belongs to. That's how we want our data to be set up, and probably that's the best way to go ahead and have our data inside these tools, and hence we are not really having those merge cells options here. Okay, and merge cell is also not kind of effectively identified, and it is not telling you that okay, all of this should belong to Alabama. It has not really gone ahead and given you that information that way. It is giving you nulls everywhere wherever you had that merge cells, except for the first value there, right? So there are a lot of things going on. We may want to go ahead and fix these things one by one. Now what I want to do here is I want to take this value Alabama and I want to fill it wherever there is null. Yes, I don't want to touch Alaska because that's a non-null value and that's a valid value. Alaska and this city is all a valid value. So we don't want to touch Alaska while we are filling this information down. Yes, we want to take Arizona again and we want to go ahead and fill that downwards. All right, wherever there is null. We don't want to touch Arkansas and we want this value because this is all valid value. Okay, now if you see things down below, again you may want to go take California, fill it down below wherever there is null, and you don't want to fill or kind of override any non-null value that you have. So this is what is the process that we want to follow, right? So you want to take a non-null value and fill this non-null value with wherever you encounter null below that. And if you encounter another non-null value, you don't want to replace all of this, right? Imagine if you were to write a line of code or few hundred lines of code, how much effort is required here. Yeah, so you have to be very careful. You'll have to say, okay, take a non-null value, consider a non-null value, go ahead and fill that downwards wherever there is null, and then do not replace any non-null value that you see or encounter down below. This is all the considerations that you have to go ahead and make. Now one more question here. You should be going ahead and taking the Alabama value, filling it downwards, and you don't want to go take Alaska and fill it upwards. You getting my point? You should not be filling Alaska upwards because that's not the valid way of populating this information. You cannot say that Chennai is in Karnataka, alright? So that's something that you don't want to mess up your data with. So you have to be very careful. So the fill is going to be in the downward direction and not in the upward direction. That's also a consideration that you have to go ahead and make. Yes or no? So all of these are going to be the considerations, and based on this is how you want to populate your data. Alright? Clear? If you were to write, like I said, a few lines of code, it's going to be taking a lot of effort, lot of considerations, and then go ahead and apply that particular change. But inside Power BI, we have a very simple solution for this, and let me show you how we can do all of this. Okay, so I'm talking about filling the values down below wherever there is null, and this is a seamless process when you go ahead and consider the option that is available inside the Power Query Editor, inside the Power BI environment here, and it's going to be very, very easy what I've explained so far, and that is how this is all going to work. All right, so here is a feature that is available here, and you don't have to stress too much. Just let that transformation do things and you will be able to go ahead and easily work on that. So if I go to the transform menu, for this we'll have to go to the transform menu. So let's go to the transform menu and we will be able to find an option called as fill. Yes, it has a drop down, and what it offers you is two ways to go ahead and fill your data. You can fill your data downwards or you can fill your data upwards. We have already spoken and we are very clear that we don't want our data to be filled upwards because that will take Alaska upwards and we don't want that, right? So this is what we want to go ahead and do. We would like to go ahead and consider the filling option, but it should be filled downwards, and that's the way we want to go with this. Yes, I would like to go ahead and select certain columns because I want to apply the transformation here. So this is telling Power BI that the transformation has to be applied on this column. Okay, so select your state column because your transformation needs to be applied on that column, and then go ahead and select fill, and let's go ahead and fill it downwards. And everything that we talked about is going to be applied just like that, and you will see the magic happen here. Have a look. So when I click on down, it's going to take Alabama, a non-null value, and wherever it encounters null, it just goes and replaces that with that. Any non-null value will be untouched. All of these non-null values will be untouched. It takes Arizona again. It goes and fills that downwards wherever there was null. It is not touching a non-null value called Arkansas, but it takes California and goes and does that again. Okay, So this is how beautiful, how powerful this tool can be. If you understand how to use those properties or the transformation techniques properly, this can really come in handy and it can fix a lot of issues that you have with your data. Okay, that's how powerful the tool is. All right. Let's go to our transformation technique file now and we'll just go work on this data set. Now I want you to pay attention to the detail here. Look at this data set and tell me whether this is a good, nice data set to work with or not. If you look at our data set, the data that we have been working on so far, let's go to the fill sheet. Okay. The data that we were working on so far, if you look at this information, we have the same kind of information in a particular column. So if I'm talking about a state column, I'm looking at the state level information here. If I'm talking about the city column, I'm talking about all the city names here. So we are used to working with column based information, but when you look at the data here, the data is more like a row based information. Yes, there are no headers, so we can't really assume a lot of things, but we can still go ahead and do that if you understand the data. So let's try assuming a few things here, but that is not recommended. Always go back to your client, ask for the details and then fix that properly. Okay. So in this case, let's say for example, the first row, it's all about the names that you have for some people. Yeah. These are all the gender. Yes. This is all probably the country that the person is living in. And let's say for example, looking at these numbers, let's say this is all the age of certain people. These people. Yes. Now, when you look at the column based information, you have too many values. You have Brenda, female, Germany, 33 coming in. And these are all different data types, different information contained in the single column. You cannot work with this particular information if you have things in this particular column. Okay. So there are a lot of different information, different data types coming in, and we are used to having our columns in this fashion. You know, the same information to be contained in the same column. That's what we are used to. We cannot go ahead and work with this data this way. So what we have to do is you'll have to take the row and you may want to convert that into a column. Yes. Now this process of converting rows into columns or columns into rows is called as transpose in a lot of different tools. Okay. So we want to go ahead and transpose our data, and that is what is required here. Now Excel has a very good way to go transpose the data. So let's say for example, I select this, I copy this information, I'll right click on one of these cells and you can see that there is an icon here that is going to help you to transpose the data. Okay. Now if you look at that icon, I'll just zoom in a little bit. If you look at that icon, it says, you know, it gives you this kind of an symbol. It means that you can take your rows and convert it into the columns, or you can take your columns and convert it into rows. So I would like to also add one small word to this definition. This is more like a blind operation that goes on. Okay. Whenever you're converting rows into columns or columns into rows, whenever the tool does that, it's more like a blind operation. So it just looks at the row and it converts that into a column. It looks at the column and it can convert that into a row. And it's just a blind operation that goes on. You feed in the rows, it will go convert that to the column. You give it a column, it will convert that into a row. So I would like to go ahead and add that one big word called blind operation. That's what is happening here. And we will talk about something called as pivoting our data, unpivoting our data. That's not going to be a blind operation. There we have to decide what columns needs to be pivoted and unpivoted. But this transpose as an option is going to be more like a blind operation that goes on. So if I just go take this particular row, copy that, right click. If I click on this icon, I will be able to convert that into a column. That's what is going to happen in tools like Excel. Okay. I can go ahead and take the other row, Control C, right click on this, and I can just go ahead and transpose this using this icon. Otherwise, you can also go use this option called as paste special, and you will have an option to transpose your data. That's the last option that is available. So check that box, say okay, and that will help you to transpose your data. So this is how the operation has to be done. Now the tools can also go ahead and very intelligently do this. You can just select the entire data, Control C, copy this entire data, and you will be able to go and transpose this in one go. So all your rows information is all coming and sitting as separate columns here. So rows are converted into columns, and that is how this transpose operation works. Okay, I think you understand the problem here, you understand the solution here. Let's go and apply this in Power BI. Alright, now let's go ahead and load this information into Power BI. Okay, so I go to the Power BI file, and this time what I'll do is I'll not load the information from this main window. We can still go ahead and load the data from your Power Query editor itself. So let me show you how that works. So if I go back to my Power Query editor, and there is this option called as new source. I'll click on that new source. There is an option to go ahead and get the data from Excel workbook. So let's go ahead and use that option. So I'm still in the Power Query editor, and I'm just trying to go ahead and connect to my Excel workbook. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Excel workbook. I click on my transformation tech file. Let's open that, and we are focusing on something called as transpose as the sheet name, and let's go ahead and check that box. This is what we have. We don't really want the details and all of that. We'll fix the column names in a while. That is all there. So once we transpose our data, we should be able to fix all of these issues. And the details that we have as a column name here is also not going to be much of an importance. So I'll just go ahead and get rid of that rather than trying to keep it. Okay. So yeah, this is what we have, and let's go ahead and transpose the data. Now you'll not see a transform or a load button come up, right? Because we are in the Power Query editor, and there is no meaning to say, hey, transform this data and then get into our Power Query editor. So there are no buttons like that, load or transform. It just says okay, which means that we are already in the transformation phase and we're just loading that data into that. Okay, I hope you're able to understand that difference. So I'll just say okay here, and then let's go ahead and do this. Okay, this is what we have, and what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and first of all let you know how to transform this data, okay, or transpose this data. So what we will do is we'll select the entire table, and like I said, selection plays a vital role. Always tell the tool where are you going to apply the transformation. But in this case, Control A is going to select everything for you, or if you just click anywhere inside the table, that should also work. But just for the sake of simplicity and making sure that we are applying the transformation properly, we'll just go do Control A. Control A would select the entire table for you, and that is what we will go and do. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the transform menu here, and you will see something called as transpose on top. That is what we want to go and use. So what I'll do is I'll just click on that button, and that's it. That will go transpose my data. So it's going to convert your rows into columns. So I'll just click on transpose, and you will see that the rows got converted into columns. You have the nice neat data coming and sitting in your columns, and that's what we wanted. You can rename these columns by two different ways. Just double click on that column, and that should give you a way to edit that column name. So double click on that column, and we'll just call this as name. We'll just double click again, and you can call this as gender. Let's go ahead and do that. You can also rename your columns by right clicking on those columns, and you can go choose something called as rename from here. Right click, rename, and you can call this as country, and that's what we have. Right click again, you can say rename, and we'll call this as age, just so that that's what the numbers denote, I believe, but you can always get that confirmed with your client if you have confusions. Do not assume anything. Do not go with any assumptions. You have to always discuss these things with your client or customer, and then go ahead and apply these changes. Clear? That's what we have done. So we have renamed our columns, and now our data is looking nice and neat, and that's what we want. If you have any questions, please post that in the comment section below. You can also reach out to me through the links from the description below. I'll see you with another topic in the next video. Thank you so much.